So I grew up here in Rapid City. I developed an interest in electricity. We had a house that had a partially unfinished basement. I noticed there were all these wires running around, just bare framing with the outlets in there. I guess I performed some experiments on those which were not pleasing to Dad. I did learn a lot about electricity. Built my first radio from parts. It was not a great radio. It was not very pretty, but it worked. All that led me to broadcasting. That was kind of the trajectory I was on with General Electric. We were working on hybrid technologies between cable and what would turn out to be the future of packet communications. My second job with Westinghouse, they were working on stuff for cable television. They have a hybrid between radio frequency kinds of things and wired kinds of things. You can see this is a consistent track through really, really big and extremely structured organizations. In all cases, though, I was working with the fringes, the people who were doing the next thing or the new thing or the thing that wasn't very popular because it was different. That's when I kind of got the call that this thing called cellular needed somebody who knew networking and knew RF and knew all these other things. I went to the West Coast and interviewed with I think the entire headquarters staff of McCaw Cellular. Pretty much, everybody.
When we started, one of the real keys was to have this North American Cellular Network that he and Nick Kauser were at the forefront of pulling together.
The only way you could reach someone in another city, you needed to know a number that was associated with that city. To call them, you would dial that number first, and then you would enter their number, and then voila, you would get them. That's kind of pain, right? What we needed was a way for all of these systems to talk together, and that way turned out to be something called IS-41B.
Probably took the first year and a half to 2 years.
At McCaw, the interesting thing is empowerment was kind of key to our success. So we didn't necessarily tell people, where to go and what to do and how to do it and when to do it and all that kind of stuff. We just said, we got to get this done, and everybody do your thing.
A significant part of that was selling the concept to the other carriers.
We needed ways to test and make sure that all of these systems would work together. We drove pretty hard at that.
We were trying to formulate a strategy that will integrate our networks.
NACN was then kind of the entity that was the infrastructure that would knit all of this together.
What Rob can do is look and see, how is this going to come together? How are we going to be able to make something work?
Rob one day came to me and he said, what are we going to do about data?
We were stuck in kind of analog thinking in terms of the way things were going on, but we were working on future digital standards. I had a group of people at McCaw that were dedicated to thinking about the future. And the question was, between then and the future, what could you do? We started an effort called CDPD.
What happened if we borrowed some of the analog channels while they were not being used and put data on that channel? And if the channel was required for voice, we will opt to another idle channel and continue transmitting data.
UPS learns of what we're doing and comes to us and says, we need a nationwide data network and we need it now. FedEx had acquired their own frequencies and was running the system that was giving you that signature delivery time. And they wanted everything, the whole US. The idea was we would do short bursts of data using analog modems that were connected to digital infrastructure, which operated on a very, very short burst, 10 seconds. The engineering tasks were pretty straightforward. The business tasks were more daunting. We led a consortium of people from Pactel, Southwestern Bell, Ameritech, and GTE. We jointly negotiated with UPS the deal at the end of the day for what it would cost for these 10-second bursts.
We have tracking technologies now that were basically his babies.
We have inducted amazing people into the Hall of Fame. To me, it's really, really humbling. I find it hard to figure out how I fit within the pantheon of all these great people that we have in the Hall of Fame.
For me, Rob was literally the font of all knowledge. Rob was always one of the people who was the driving force around making these things happen. And he did it in a way that brought everybody together.